Welcome in. Welcome in. This is the Junkyard Dawgcast, week 1, first episode of Georgia's 2025 football season. I'm up in the press box, probably sweating my ass off because I was just walking through Sanford Stadium. Georgia won its season opening game against Marshall 45-7. I am your host, Benjamin Wolk. I'm so out of breath. I don't even think I remembered to say that. I don't know if I'll be solo for this whole episode or most episodes this season. Jordan Hill and Olivia Sayer, they are down in Kirby Smart's press conference as we speak. So go over to Dogs 24/7 right now. I'm sure that we will have plenty of stuff coming out of Kirby Smart and players following that game. But just so everyone's aware, we'll be doing this every single game this season, all 12 regular season games. I will be going live on YouTube, on X, on Facebook, talking about Georgia's wins, at least in this case. Big game in Sanford Stadium this weekend. I think at some point later on in the show, we'll have Jordan and Olivia hop on so that they can give some of their insights. Who knows? Maybe Kipp Adams will even treat us from time to time during the season. No, Kipp, if you're listening to this, no pressure, by the way, only if you want to. But that's what these post-game shows are going to look like. We're going to be talking Georgia football. We're going to be talking the game. We're going to be talking about what we saw around the country. And I'll be hosting most of that. And then we'll have Jordan and Olivia hop on with some post-game insights as well. Georgia wins 45-7, moves to 1-0 on the year. Going to start going through some stats from the game. And then we'll just sort of talk about what we learned from the game as well. But thought it might be a nice little picture into what happened. Gunnar Stockton, 14 of 24 passing, 190 yards, 2 touchdowns. Ryan Puglisi also got in the game late, went 5 of 8 for 59 yards and a touchdown. Hit Elias Williams for a 23-yarder along the left sideline. I think that everybody was excited to see Ryan Puglisi and Elias Williams have some success early. On the ground, Gunnar Stockton, 73 yards rushing. Didn't take a sack in this game either, and I'll get to that in a second. I think there were a couple moments where Gunnar Stockton showed what he's able to do in the pocket in a way that Georgia wasn't able to do things in the pocket at quarterback the last 2 seasons. And that's not meant to be a knock on Carson Beck. That's meant to be, you got to take advantage of the skills and strengths that your quarterback has. And that's what Gunnar Stockton does really well. Dwight Phillips, I think, is going to get way more run than we realized or expected this season. He ended up with 60 yards rushing, 1 touchdown, including that first touchdown of the season from 14 yards out. Nate Frazier, 11 carries for 47 yards. Chauncey Bowens, 6 carries for 33 yards. Really didn't see a whole lot of Roger Robinson. Saw a little bit of Bo Walker and Josh McCray there in the fourth quarter, but not a ton of it. On the receiving end, Zachariah Branch was the star of the day. 5 targets, caught 3 passes for 95 yards. 89 of those were yards after the catch. They were getting involved in the screen game, in the quick slant game. Takes a 47-yarder to the house along the left sideline to start the second half. I think anybody who was wondering, will Zachariah Branch look and feel as electric as he did when you were watching him Pac-12 after dark when he was at USC? The answer to that is yes. He is going to be a lot of fun to watch this year offensively and in the special teams game. London Humphreys, 3 catches, only 8 yards, but one of them went for a touchdown there when Georgia got inside the 5. I think they went for it on 4th down, if I'm not mistaken, and hit London Humphreys in the back of the end zone. Oscar Delp, 2 catches for 33 yards, and Colby Young, 2 catches for 30 yards. I think Georgia would have liked to see more receivers get involved in the passing game. I mean, Dylan Bell had a drop. They took a shot at one point to who was it? I guess it was Dylan Bell. Dylan Bell had the drop. They took a shot to Lawson Lucky. They took a shot to Talon Taylor down the field. So I think they would have liked to get more people involved. On defense, I mean, Raylan Wilson had 7 tackles, 2 tackles for loss. Chris Cole, 5 tackles, 1 tackle for loss. I'm going to pull up the more detailed defensive stats here to see if there's anything that I'm missing. Gabe Harris, 2 tackles for loss. KJ Bolden with a pass breakup. Perhaps the most statistic of the game. KJ Bolden blocks the punt. So again, that's just the quick statistical rundown from the game. Curious in the comments section if there's anything that stood out to you all. Statistically, I guess more on the team side of things, Georgia ended with 488 yards of total offense. That was 249 passing, or 239 passing, and I want to say 239 rushing. So really balanced. I think that Georgia is going to look way more balanced this season than they have, especially last year, but really each of the last 2 seasons. 26 first downs to Marshall's 7. Marshall only had 1 first down in the first half. So I was among those, hinting before the week that I thought Georgia might struggle a little bit on the defensive side. There's a lot of new faces on the defensive line. We don't really know what to expect from them. There's a ton of talent there, but the inexperience, does that outweigh that? I thought they might, see some growing pains in that area early, even against Marshall and Austin Peay. That certainly was not the case. Only gave up 78 yards rushing, only 129 yards passing, and 44 of those came on one busted play down the right sideline when Georgia's backup unit, I think it was Rashawn Dinkins, who actually had a couple of plays stepping up and tackling some guys in space that were impressive or notable. He did get beat along the right sideline on a back shoulder throw, and that resulted in the 1 touchdown that was allowed. Jordan Hill has just let me know that he's heading up from Kirby Smart's press conference, so I'm sure that we will be getting some updates from him and Olivia in the second half of the show. If we're talking player of the game, just from the statistical output, I think you got to go either KJ Bolden because of the blocked punt, Gunnar Stockton because of everything that he did on passing and running. But I would probably lean towards Zachariah Branch. He had some big play explosiveness that was fun. I talked to Zachariah Branch down when we had player interviews just a little bit ago, and he was just saying, like, this is why you come to Georgia, because you can be explosive, you can have fun, you can make big plays, and you're playing with one of the best defenses in college football. So you know that your big play explosiveness isn't going to go to waste. Obviously, it's only Marshall, so we don't want to take, too many, have too many opinions about Georgia based on this small sample size. But, I think that that was an indicator of what you can expect from Zachariah Branch this season. Going away from the stats for a little bit, just talking about some of the key moments from the game. Like, I thought there were a few things that really stood out to me. One, what Gunnar Stockton, we've heard Kirby Smart and Mike Bobo have said during the season or during fall camp that we have Kipp Adams in the house. Kipp, how are we? Kipp, do you have me? Oh, no, we might have lost him. All right, well, I'm going to just continue on, and then, Kipp, you let me know. You can feel free to interrupt me whenever you are in the building.
How's everyone doing? What are the early thoughts from this game, Ben? What's the early feedback been from the fans?
Yeah, I was just kind of going through the statistical rundown. I'll also ask you, can you hear any background noise? This is bad podcasting, but can you hear any background noise from me? Okay. No. I'm in a semi-open-air version of the press box, so I can hear some mowing going on down on Dooley Field, but I was just talking about some of the key moments of the game. I went through, the stat rundown, and I think, to me, obviously it was sort of out of hand at the end of the first half. So really the emphasis is on, like, what did you see in the first half of that game? And, we've heard Kirby Smart and Gunnar and Mike Bobo allude to the fact that they have a quarterback that allows them to do some slightly different things in the run game. And I've always wondered, what does that mean exactly? Because we didn't really get to see a whole lot of what that meant against Notre Dame and the small sample that we got of Gunnar Stockton. And I think what we saw early was Georgia's going to show some creative looks in the run game. 4th and 2 on the first possession of the game, and Georgia runs a speed option to Nate Frazier. Gunnar Stockton fakes the toss, picks up 14 yards, jukes out a second-level defender. And I think you realize, I don't know about you, Kipp. You've watched more Georgia football over the years than I have. Like, how much have you seen Georgia even running potential speed options? I haven't seen a whole lot of it. I don't even remember them doing a lot of it with Stetson back in the day either. So I think you saw early, whether it be designed runs, read options, this fun little speed option wrinkle that we haven't seen a whole lot of. What impressed me most was on two or three of Gunnar's dropbacks, I thought he was getting sacked. I thought that the pressure was there, that he wasn't going to be able to get free. And he picks up, even if it's just 6 yards, 7 yards, extends the drive with a first down, whatever that might be. He did that enough times, didn't get sacked during the game. Makes you realize, this has a different look to it? Is it always going to be better? Are you going to see a quarterback layering passes the way that you have the last 2 years? Probably not, but that's okay. I think you just have to live with what you have and you design the right play calls around it. I thought that Mike Bobo did a great job of that today. I'm curious, what did you see in the first half from Gunnar Stockton specifically that stood out to you?
Well, there's the one aspect is we don't know if it's going to be okay, but we don't know if it's bad either.
Yeah,
It is Marshall. So you're able to out-talent them from a perspective to where you always wonder how much of the playbook are they showing, how vanilla are they going, what can you really glean from this, knowing that at the end of the day, you can throw a check down to a Zachariah Branch and he can run 45 yards for a touchdown for a reason because he's more talented than anybody on that roster. At the same time, though, they put out film that's going to help them in these conference games. I mean, seeing the fake, the speed option from Gunnar Stockton, seeing him like juke defenders one-on-one, that is a different look, as you said, than we've seen in, I'm going to say 20 years at Georgia. I mean, I think I do remember seeing some speed option from DJ Shockley back in the day, but since then, no. And it kind of been, I don't want to say a running joke, but it's just been Georgia fans just knew that wasn't going to be a part of their offense almost every year for the last 2 decades. And now you see, that aspect of, Gunner's might not be running a 4.5, but at the same time, like, he is not afraid just to go. And he's run enough in his career, high school to college, to where he's an experienced runner. He knows how to make moves in the open field, and he has outstanding ball fakes. I just think that aspect that they showed today, it just helps make them more unpredictable on offense, which is the goal. That is something you can take from Marshall, knowing that you're going to run up the score. You're still not going to cover because Kirby Smart's now 0-13 against, I think, when they're favored by like
38 plus. He's now 0-14.
That much you can take to the bank, but there's still a benefit to what they showed offensively in this game. There's a lot to be excited about. When you look at the running backs, we talked about how deep they were, but did we have Peanut coming out and showing some Keith Marshall to his game that maybe this running back competition is a little bit more heated than we thought? The fact that I think you saw a Gabe Harris who I think maybe looked like he had the best offseason in the strength and conditioning program of any player in the program. I think both sides of the ball, even against the Marshall, there are a lot of positives from this game. And I think overall, you got to be really excited about what this roster looks like moving forward.
I mean, I will say you brought up something there, like the deception, the sleight of hand that Gunnar Stockton has. I think I took it for granted there were a couple of times, like, I don't know about you, Kipp, but on the second touchdown run where he pulls it from Chauncey Bowens, I think that might have been a 4th down as well. And he ends up taking it 13 yards for the touchdown. He fooled everyone in the press box. I don't know how it looked when you were watching live. I don't know what everyone in Sanford Stadium was thinking. I know the entire Marshall defensive front thought that Chauncey Bowens had the ball. So Gunnar Stockton's that's an element to him that, you can't, I don't know that you really know that a guy has that until you've seen it. And I don't care that it's Marshall when you are deceiving 90,000 people. Like, there's something to that. So, I thought that was impressive. You did bring up 2 guys that their game-breaking ability, I think, is going to make a wild difference for Georgia's offense this season. Zachariah Branch is the one that goes without saying. I don't think it surprises anyone. You go into the transfer portal to get a guy of his electricity for that reason, right? He makes a play down the left sideline, 47 yards, takes a screen to the house. Dylan Bell has a block that springs him, makes it look easy. There were a couple other moments, even he had like an 11-yard punt return in the first half where he's not breaking a big one, but you notice it. Like, he took a screen early in the game. I think it was like 20 yards or something like that. You notice it. You take a quick slant, gets like 15 yards, you notice it. So that's going to be a lot of fun. But Dwight Phillips, I mean, this dude is fully part of the running back rotation. And when you we heard Jordan Hall say it a couple of weeks ago, like when he gets in open space, good luck, you're not touching him. Nate Frazier mentioned it when I was just down talking to him for player interviews. Like when he's in open space, like if he gets the smallest little crease, good luck. And he did that on more than one occasion, but obviously takes one to the end zone. I mean, can you think of the last time Georgia had a running back with this type of game-breaking ability, Kip?
Like I said, I think you may have got to see it if you would have seen Keith Marshall stay healthy, but I mean, that still has been a while. And I think having a guy like that, and also just, again, having Georgia score touchdowns on 3 of their first drives, like you can't ask for anything more than that for, Lord knows this fan base needed a start like that just coming into the offseason. They gone 3 now on the first couple of drives. We might have had to, control, delete the junkyard a couple of times and restart it there. But I just think that aspect, the explosiveness that those two guys bring, just opens up everything for this offense. I think they did some really good things out there. And those 3 guys, with Gunnar Stockton included, I mean, defenses are going to have to work in their prep for Georgia a lot more. And you're coming off a year where everyone's talking about the drop passes, your quarterback's having to force things. This is not that same type of offense. And I think when you know that you have game breakers at multiple positions and possibly including quarterback, because he is hard to bring down, I think that just gives you a lot to work with and allows for your offensive coordinator to really work with a much deeper group of plays than maybe you had before.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we are going to have the man of the hour, Jordan Hill, fresh off of Kirby Smart's press conference down in Sanford Stadium. He's going to give us some injury updates. We're going to talk about what he saw from the game that maybe Kip and I haven't talked about already, and then maybe just some high points of what he heard from Kirby Smart. We will also talk about some scores around the country, and I think there's at least one, probably 2 scores that really are going to make some people in Dog Nation feel good about themselves. So quick break. We'll be right back with Jordan Hill. All right, Mr. Hill, we appreciate you for joining us here. Kip and I, we've gone through the stat rundown. We've gone through our takeaways from the game, and we'll get into some of your takeaways from the game as well. But I think more importantly for those listening, you were just down at the Kirby Smart press conference. I think the first thing that anyone's probably going to want to know about from a game like this is some injury updates. We all saw Juan Gaston went down early on in the game. Ernest Green goes down, doesn't come back in. Micah Morris goes down at one point. So that offensive line, there's big questions about what do you know coming out of Kirby Smart's press conference about the health status of those 3 offensive linemen or anyone else that you feel like there were interesting takeaways from down there as well.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing, like you said, Ben, is injury updates. I asked Kirby about Juan Gaston. He said he was going to have an MRI. They're not sure if it's a high ankle sprain or not, so we'll find out. Kind of TBD there. Ernest Green, lower body stiffness is how Kirby described it. We'll see there. He was asked about Dalen Everett, who didn't play on Saturday, and all Kirby said was he's injured. So not a ton of clarity there. I am just interested probably on Monday when we talk to Kirby, especially with a day or 2 removed and after a chance to watch film, what he thought of the offensive line, because suddenly that's now a big question for Georgia. Your right guard and your right tackle get hurt. And, from what I saw, after they went out, just watching it live, I thought they played okay, but we understand they're playing Marshall and that, the caliber opponent isn't quite what they'll be seeing once they get into SEC play. But other than that, from Kirby, I didn't think anything too wild. He talked about where they were running the ball, stopping the run. I think he was very transparent about this was Marshall and understanding that, you can only glean so much from playing an opponent like this. He talked about Gunnar, seemed like he was pretty pleased with his play. He was asked about Gunnar as like a pure passer. And he said, that everything kind of goes into the effect, goes into the equation. Him as a runner, him as a passer, putting that all together. I think he was overall pleased, knowing still that there's things to clean up. Really neat hearing him talk about seeing his mom and his wife after the game. This was the first game since the first win, I should say, since Kirby's dad passed away. So talking about, taking the joy in this moment, and he said, if you can't enjoy this, then why do you do this? I thought that was pretty touching to hear Kirby talk about that. And then, he talked about some of the younger guys, and he said one of his favorite moments today was seeing Thomas Blackshear, a true freshman, make a catch. And he said, there was like 12 wide receivers on the sideline cheering. So, it's a situation. He shouted out to Clinton Barlow, who's a defensive lineman who's been at Georgia for a long time, a walk-on that never really gets to play. And, him getting some run, and had a chance to talk to Christian Miller, and Clinton brought up Clinton's name as well. So that was neat. Sort of, we take this kind of a game, and next week against Austin Peay, as writers, as people who cover the team, it's kind of hard to get interested in this game. And you get later on in this game, and we're writing stuff on deadline and trying to get stories up, but there's a lot of cool little stories like that. Seeing the guys rally around, either the younger guys or the walk-ons, we don't get to see a lot. So thought it was pretty cool for Kirby to put a spotlight on some of those guys.
Did you just give us deadlines, Jordan? Sounded like you just said that we've got deadlines.
Well, to be fair, we usually post like 4 stories right at the buzzer. And,
Okay.
I know that, the AJC announced this week that they're not printing after this year, but they still got this football season. So there are still very few and far between, but there are still people trying to put out a print paper every week.
I am going to pose this question to both of you because I think it's a burning question among Georgia fans. Like, if there's not much negative that you can take away from this game. I don't think. Like, how much do you put into a game like this? I don't really know. But negatively, it's hard to draw too much from this. I think the big thing that people will say is pass pro wasn't great at all times, and now Juan Gaston's needing an MRI. Ernest Green's been dealing with, something. What is y'all's concern level? And I'll start with you, Kipp. What's your concern level if Juan Gaston is having to miss time, if Ernest Green isn't fully healthy? Like, is that a problem? I
think there's some concern. I mean, I thought you got pretty good play from Bo Hughley out there. And, Daniel Calhoun stepped in, I believe, pretty well. I have some concern overall, even if those guys are back healthy, just because you saw tip passes again. I mean, I think he had 2 tip passes on his first 19 throws in the game for Gunner. That still is, now we've seen it happen enough to where it's kind of a recurring thing. It's not just, it's just something that happened last year. He'll get that worked out. I've seen it a couple times now to where it's something I'm keeping my eye on now. And just in general, the pass protection, he was having to work through some progressions a lot quicker than you could tell he wanted to, or probably the play design wanted to. That is still something to where I am going to watch it because this is Marshall, and you are going to see those windows tighten and his time to throw come down a little bit. So my level of concern, it's there. It's not something to where I think that this is nothing. That is definitely the biggest aspect from this game where I go, Georgia needs to work on it and improve in that area moving forward.
Yeah. I mostly agree. I mean, my one thing is, like, we didn't even think Juan Gaston was going to be Georgia's starting right guard until about 2 weeks ago. So I feel like you can live with that one, even though it's not necessarily ideal because he was good enough to be starting as a true freshman. Jordan, what's your read on it? Big concern, small concern, not a concern yet? What do you think?
I would probably split the middle and say kind of a medium concern. I think having Austin Peay next week, I think that really helps. One, because if those guys can't go, you get that game. But 2, I think it's very similar with what we saw with Dalen Everett today. I think if this was an SEC game, Dalen Everett probably plays and maybe doesn't play the full game, but it gets out there. I think that they can use an abundance of caution really with both of these guys as far as getting them back out there. So it's kind of a 2-sided You never want to get these guys hurt, but to get hurt right here, they've got a little bit of a runway as far as working with guys in practice. Maybe they want to do a couple different combinations to see who they like if Ernest Green and if Juan Gaston can't go next week. So I think I would put a medium concern, understanding that they've still got time on their side. Now, if we go in next week and none of those guys play and we don't have a great feel for what that looks like going into Tennessee, I think that bumps up the level of concern quite a bit.
While I pull up the scores from around the country, I want both of y'all to give a sort of a big takeaway from the game. What was your one thing that you want folks to leave with coming out of the Marshall game?
I'll go first and just say that I think that this defense is in good hands and in good shape. Obviously, they lost a ton from last year, and obviously this was a Marshall team that might as well be starting from scratch. But I thought that they were very impressive. I thought the fact that they rotated as much as they did, and I didn't feel like you could really see a huge difference between depending on who was out there. I think this defense is trending in the right direction, understanding that, a lot of caveats that we have to put on this game and next week's game, knowing that the biggest test is going to be at Tennessee. But personally, I liked what I saw from this defense, and I feel like at multiple positions, I could point to 2 or 3 guys who are not starters and say, look, if they got put in a position where they had to play more, I think that Georgia would be in okay shape.
Kipp, what about you?
Well, like I said earlier, the fact that they have explosive playmakers it gives you a lot of hope for this offense and its potential. It's just not something, they were looking for guys last season, and they basically had to, use Arian Smith way more than anyone expected. But now you could see guys who could just take short throws and make something happen out of it. That opens something up and you do want to see more explosive plays down the field, but now that you have guys that can make those plays, and definitely just the overall, you didn't see missed tackles. I mean, that was the one aspect to where, the defense did not look like a Kirby Smart defense for the first time, because you just had all those missed tackles. These guys were wrapping up. They were bringing down ball carriers. They were playing fast. And Raylan Wilson was just kind of reminding everyone, like, hey, guys, I don't know why everyone thinks maybe I'm the least talented linebacker in this room somehow, but I can make plays too. And I think that was good, just to let the whole rotation in there. If Terrell Foster's in the game, you're not really worried either. Like, I just think they have depth in that room, and they're going to flex that depth throughout the year. And the other refreshing thing for me is when Ryan Puglisi came in the game, he actually got to throw the football. Like, that was like Kirby let him throw. And we've seen backup quarterbacks of the Kirby Smart, they just have to turn and hand the ball off for about 5 minutes and then go. Like, he actually got 6 or 7 throws out there. And it's rare that you have a quarterback score 4 touchdowns and yet still your backup quarterback has people the whispering, is he the more talented passer of the group? It's a great problem for Georgia to have. It was an outstanding, first day for Ryan Puglisi, and it shows that room looks to be in great hands moving forward.
Yeah, I would agree on the I was wrong. Well, I don't want to draw too many conclusions from the Marshall game, but giving up 1 first down in the first half, when I was questioning the inexperience, the thinness of the defensive front, a lot of faces that we just haven't seen do it. And again, it's just Marshall. I don't want to get carried away, but I think anytime anyone, and I'm pointing at myself in this one, doubts Glenn Schumann's defense, like, you've got a rude awakening coming. So lesson learned there. I do want to give a few shout outs to people that have been watching along live during the course of this as well. Thomas T-Bone says, go Dogs. Al Bowers on Facebook says, my heart is still with Georgia. Robin Smith, go Bulldogs. Fernandez Anderson, some constructive feedback for Gunnar Stockton. Doesn't want him locked in on targets. I'll push back there and say, I think on that second touchdown pass that he threw to London Humphreys, I think it was probably the 3rd or 4th spot in his progressions, finds him in the back of the end zone. So I'm the least worried about Gunnar Stockton, I think, that I've ever been. And I know that it's maybe irresponsible to do that just because you see him win 45-7 and have 4 touchdowns against Marshall. But he did a lot of things that I like today that puts me at ease around some of the concerns that I had around him. He also does say Puglisi has the talent. I completely agree with that as well. All right, let's get into some scores from around the country, because while the Georgia-Marshall game, I know, captivated a lot of folks, I think there was a lot more interesting things that happened around college football today. And we'll just go through the top 25, and then we'll go through the SEC. Please, fellas, chime in when we get intrigued by a score that I read out. I'm imagining you're going to cut me off right off the jump. Number 3, Ohio State beats number 1, Texas, 14-7. Arch Manning, still your Heisman favorite, Jordan?
Not quite. And I will say, if there's one thing I feel good about after today, I had Georgia covering. That didn't happen. But if y'all will go back to my SEC preseason predictions, I had Texas 4th in the SEC. I didn't think Arch Manning would be bad. And look, as much fun as it is to kind of poke fun at Texas right now, you have to, acknowledge that was the defending national champions at home. But Texas did not have a good day. And to kind of go behind the curtain, sort of inside baseball with what we do, with Georgia playing a 3:30 kick, I was kind of getting into the stadium here in Sanford, probably like 10 minutes into that Texas game, and kind of getting ready for the start of the Georgia game stuff. So I wasn't really like watching the Texas Ohio State game closely, but it was like every 15 minutes I would look up and see what was going on, and it just seemed like there was no offense. It looked like I saw the same score over the course of like 5 times of looking up and checking in.
Kipp, did Arch Manning look as bad from your seat?
I mean, he looked like a quarterback that I said had only had 6 pass attempts against top 10 opponents during his career. And again, a lot of quarterbacks would have gone into that situation and probably performed worse than Arch Manning did in that game. I mean, this game looked like, the old Alabama LSU games, where it's just field goals the entire game. I mean, when all was said and done, Arch Manning was still the starter for the more productive offense out there. They won the yards from scrimmage battle against Ohio State. I think Ohio State had like 203 yards total in this game and won. At the end of the day, it's about your decision making. It's that this is where the Kirby Smart school of quarterbacks is actually correct, in that you need to avoid risk at times to win another day. I think that's for Arch Manning. I mean, he had so many throws where you're just like, what is he thinking? And I get it. I mean, Ohio State's defense makes you do that. But at the same time, like, you prepare all offseason. Like, you knew this was the game. You knew who you were going up against. At the same time, I will say that Sark did him no favors with the play calling out there either. This is a game that if you're Sark, you got to take one for the program and say that you did not bring your best game. In fact, you were ill prepared for this, your game plan from top to bottom, your decisions in this game. I mean, it's just one you want to have back, but at the same time, with the playoff structure, we're not going to be shocked to see both these teams playing again in the postseason. It's just today we get to talk about, we told you so. But we have to acknowledge these are still probably 2 of the 10, if not 5 best teams in the country. And we'll see them in the quarterfinals, if not semifinals.
That was going to be my take, is like, it's fun. It's funny to make fun of Texas. It's funny to make fun of Arch Manning. Like, that's all fun. They lost by a touchdown on the road against the defending national champs that still have their best player on offense and best player on defense from a year ago. So there's a lot of teams that would have gone into that environment and looked that way offensively. There's a lot of teams that would have gone into that environment and lost. I think that when we look back on this game, we're going to be saying like, oh, that was 2 of the top 5 games. And I think 2 of the top 5 teams in the country. And even though people feel a way about Arch Manning right now after what they've seen, I still think Texas is going to be just fine. All right, running through some other scores. Number 2, Penn State wins 46-11 against Nevada. Number 7, Oregon wins 59-13 against Montana State. We did our preseason predictions a couple weeks ago, guys, and I said that I thought that Alabama was going to beat Georgia or lose to Georgia, but go 11-1. That scenario is officially impossible to play out like that. Alabama falls 31-17 to Florida State. What in the world do we make of that game?
You had Gus Malzahn on the other sideline. That's what I make of that. Now, truthfully, I didn't see a ton of this game because it was going on at the same time as Georgia Marshall, but I don't think Ty Simpson looked all that good. I think that kudos to Florida State, man, because I think that it was easy after the way last season played out to say, oh, this is not trending in the right direction. And does anyone deserve more kudos today than Thomas Castellanos, who just went about his business and said, backed it up? I mean, doubled down on what he was saying in the offseason. I hope that young man never has to pay for another drink, especially if he is in Tallahassee.
Kipp, you were probably watching a little bit more of that. Like, what the hell happened?
Yeah, it was impressive. I think Florida State came out and they were just the more physical team up front. And I think, again, I hate to call out something that's, one of us wrote, but this is on the Dogs 247 website. I mean, this is, you could have saw this coming if you'd read our expert picks against the spread we published this week. This was my upset pick. And it's definitely not just because Ben already picked Syracuse over Tennessee. We won't even talk about that game at all. We'll just focus on this.
We'll get there. All right.
But it was, I think that, again, Florida State roster, it needs to be talked about. They approached this offseason and they upgraded like across the board on offense. And at the same time, I just think that when you're averaging, over 4.5 yards a carry against Alabama, Kirby Smart will tell you how hard it is to do that. You run for 230 yards after averaging less than 90 yards the year before. You handled the transfer portal well, and you won the offseason. This is who's going to have a better week one than that? I just think that Kalen DeBoer, man, you've now lost to more unranked teams, than Nick Saban did in 16 years at Alabama. It's going to be a tough week for him and that coaching staff. But I think the one thing that did surprise me is the fact that Alabama could not run the football at all. 87 rushing yards on 29 carries. And they got stopped on 4th down 3 times. And I just think that, again, the offensive line play for both teams was the difference in this game.
I just wanted to shout out that Kalen DeBoer is now 2-5 in games away from Bryant-Denny Stadium. That will have you renting and not buying if you're the Alabama head coach.
Sometimes my dumb brain works in the recruiting world a little bit too much. So now I'm sitting here thinking, first of all, Florida State's going to be able to capitalize off this in a way. People have been just degrading Florida State for a year now, saying, why would anyone want to go play there? Usmani Chroma flips from Georgia to Florida State late, and everyone's like, what could you possibly be thinking? And now I think Florida State is going to be able to, reap some benefits from a win like this. Alabama, what does this even mean for them? I don't know. We'll see. A couple more games. Number 20, Indiana beats Old Dominion 27-14. Number 22, Iowa State beats South Dakota 55-7. For you, Kipp, because I wouldn't want to go out of this show without acknowledging it. Number 24, Tennessee beats Syracuse 45-26. Very much does not lose as a 13.5-point favorite. If you go to Dogs 24/7 earlier this week, you'll see that I picked that in our expert picks. And if you read the first sentence, it says, I don't even believe this pick myself. So take that for what you want. Some ongoing games right now. Number 18, Oklahoma is up 21-3. Florida, number 15, up 30-0. Kansas State up 17-14 on North Dakota. Kansas State, maybe not the team people thought they were this year. Number 19, Texas A&M is only up 14-10 on UTSA, and Clemson leads 3-0 very, very early against LSU. Michigan, Texas Tech, both shutting out their opponents in the first half as well. Anything from those games that I just ran through that stick out to you?
I think Kansas State is in a rough spot. I did kind of find it funny that them and Iowa State had games this week after having them play in Ireland last week. I thought that was interesting. And yeah, Ben, you're taking one with the expert picks, but hand up, I picked a game that was on Thursday. My upset pick didn't hit. Kipp was gracious enough to say, "Hey, pick another one. This game's already been played." And then I picked Southern Miss and Miss State, and that one didn't hit either. So how do you go into 1 week and go 0 for 2? Well, I figured out a way.
The Southern Miss pick wasn't bad. Mississippi State only wins 34-17. I think they pulled away a little bit late there. Kentucky probably played the most interesting game of the SEC teams that were playing cupcake opponents. They beat Toledo 24-16. I think that one's going to be a bloodbath when Kentucky comes to Athens this season. Vanderbilt's up 28-0 on Charleston Southern. I feel like that's a pretty thorough rundown from the SEC side of things. Auburn obviously wins on Friday night against Baylor 31-17. Jackson Arnold running the ball pretty well. Georgia's probably not going to have a lot of fun that day in Auburn. But yeah, a pretty fun week one. And there's some more, there's Clemson LSU's going on right now. We've got Notre Dame, Miami tomorrow night. We've got UNC versus TCU on Monday night. I mean, we've got a lot of good football ahead of us for the weekend. Before I sign off, fellas, any parting thoughts from the game, from other games? Just kind of give me your one big final takeaway.
Happy that college football is back. Just fun to kind of get a taste of that. As far as Georgia's concerned, we'll get a little bit more of that next week. And had a fun time. It was a nice little opportunity to run through everything, get back in the flow of stuff, clean game. Hopefully for Georgia's sake, those guys who got banged up are okay and excited for next week. I will shout out, if you want to chime in on the podcast, we're going to use speakpipe.com. And if you're on Facebook or YouTube, you can see the link I posted there. We want to start getting y'all's voice on here. You can record voicemails on SpeakPipe, and we want your thoughts on week one, what you liked, what you didn't like, concerns, questions for us. And if you do it, hey, give us your name and your hometown if you're on the board. If you want to just throw out your board handle, that'd be cool. But hope the fans will chime in. I think that'll be a fun new element to the podcast.
Absolutely. Well, Kipp, thank you for jumping on. Jordan, thank you for joining us after Kirby Smart. Is Olivia, is she around you? Does she have any thoughts about the game for you?
She is a floor above me actually doing work. So
working. Okay, cool. Well, maybe you and I can maybe try and join her in doing that here in a second. Appreciate everyone who was on with us live. For anybody who's watching or listening after the fact, we appreciate you as well. I will say, please subscribe to Dogs 24/7. We're going to have a ton of good content. We already have a ton of good content from the game. We will have more coming out of the game, out of Kirby Smart, coming out of press conferences. One thing I love doing on Sundays is going through the snap count and, certain statistical takeaways and things like that as well. So we'll have that on Sunday too. A game like this is always fun when it comes to snap counts to really realize how much certain guys were getting involved. So we will have plenty. Please subscribe. I believe we've got a promo running right now, actually. Jordan or Kipp, do you know the promo right offhand to be able to share?
I believe it's 75% off, Kipp. You can tell me if I'm wrong, but kickoff special. And like Ben said, we got games these next few days. I'll plan on having some watch along threads while we're, writing out of this game. And it's a good time to join.
Awesome, fellas. Well, thanks again to everyone. We will be back next week. Georgia plays Austin Peay. Like I said at the beginning of the show, we're going to be doing something like this for every game. So, I'll be hosting it. I'm covering 11 of the games live, and then the Mississippi State game is the one game that I won't. So I'll still be doing this, from home that day as well. But Georgia 45-7 beats Marshall, off to a 1-0 start. We will be back in Sanford Stadium, same time next week. Jordan, 3:30. Yeah, we'll say same time next week, and if we have to adjust that, you'll see us whenever that is. So thanks, everyone. Until next time, I'm Benjamin Wolk, here with Kipp Adams and Jordan Hill. This was another episode of the Junkyard Dawgcast.